Welcome back. In this tutorial we will look at starting the game from the main menu, and we will also look at allowing the player to decide whether to play against the AI or a human opponent. So let's get started with that. We can start with the start game. Now, you may remember from the last time that the game just automatically starts when you hit play. So this is the reason this is happening. It's in ball script, the start method, which is called pretty early in initialization. It's determining the serve direction and it's handling the ball serve. So that's basically starting things. So we don't want that to happen anymore, so let's just comment that out for now. Maybe we can just copy it because we're going to be copy it and get rid of it because we're going to be using it somewhere else. And you see, okay, so we'll make a start game method here. Starts the game from the menu. Public. We don't need to return anything. Void. Start game. We don't need to pass anything. Okay, so that's one of the things we're going to need to do. So do we have, that's in the ball script, remember, so we're going to need to ball script dot determine serve direction. So that'll start serving the ball anyway. There are a couple of other things we're going to need to take care of. One thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to get rid of the menu, because you could do this in multiple scenes. It doesn't really matter very much in this case. So we're going to need to disable the menu here. So to do that, we need to get a reference to it, and we need to call a method to disable it. So let's start off by getting a reference here. So public, and for panel, I don't think there's a specific type for panel, so I think you just use game object, and we'll call it menu panel. Disable the menu panel. Menu panel dot set active false. Okay, and we need to get a reference to this, so we just drag it in, menu panel. Let's just check to see if that's working. No, that's what we need to just call the method when we press the button. So once again, this is in game control script, which is attached to game control object. So you drag in the object, you select the script, then you select the method you want to call when the button is pressed, and we want to start the game. Okay. So we will also need to look at disabling. We still have the buttons for restart the game and the will to be menu button here. So we need to disable them also. And let's just get rid of this first so we can see what we're dealing with here. We'll get the restart game button, and we'll just name this now return to menu button, and that's in the end game options panel. So when we start the game, let's see, I'm not sure if we have a method here. It's a little while since if we have a method for just switching it off, or yeah, it's just a single line, so we don't really need to put it in a method. Okay, so disable the victory options panel. Now we will actually start the game. We're actually going to disable this when we're starting the game, but it's going to be switched on. So if we switched on at the end of the game, so if we go from the end of the game back to the menu and back into the game, it'll still be visible. So we need to do this somewhere, so we can just do it here. We have end game options panel here, end game options panel dot set active false, and build, and we want to re-enable this. Okay, press play, start game. So that's that pretty much taken care of. We need to do the players next. So let's just have a look to see what's in place already. Game control script is probably the obvious place to store the number of players. So let's create an area here called functional fields, public integer, number of players, and we'll default it to 1. So go down to the main menu methods here, and we will create a method called toggle number of players. Toggles number of human players. So public void toggle number of human players. We don't need to pass anything, so if number of players equals 1, let's just comment it first. If currently 1 human player, set both players as human. So if there's 1, we'll set it to both. Else both players are human. Set 1 to, we'll say set player to computer controlled. Okay, else. So if number of players equals 1, first thing we do is set number of players of human players. Number of players equals 2. Number of players equals 1. So this is just more or less for handling the state that will determine which set of instructions will be played or will be executed when this method is run. So it's just that the number of players is really just for use within this method, because it's going to check here, okay, is 1 player human or both human? There's only 1, set them both. So then if it comes in, if the player presses the button again, it'll go back and go, okay, both players are human, let's set it to 1. We need to handle the rest of the logic separately, and I can't quite remember how much we've done here. Okay, not very much. So we'll need to separate the input by paddle. So we do have a paddle number. So if paddle number equals 1, this will be player 1's controls. And do the check for this input. if this paddle is controlled by player 1, else this paddle is controlled by player 2. Now this will only be if it's human controlled. I should just check that's yeah, okay. So remember in fixed update here, it'll check if player controlled, check for player input, otherwise handle computer paddle movement. So this logic will only run if the paddle number is 2 and the paddle is controlled by a human player. So let's just set these, let's just copy and paste this to speed up the process. Keycode dot, let's see, up arrow, keycode dot down arrow. Okay, so now we've got distinct controls for each player, and we'll need to set some fields on paddle 2, and we don't have a reference to the paddle scripts. So public paddle script, paddle 1 script, public paddle script, paddle 2 script. Okay, so game control object, so we just need to get a reference to these paddle scripts. We only really need paddle 2 for now, because that's the player 1 will always be human controlled. Paddle 2 will alternate between human and player controlled, or sorry, human and computer controlled. But we're going to need both of them, I think, anyway. So let's just grab both of them now. So we have references to both the paddle scripts now, so we can access any of the information here that's public, or any of the methods that are public. So let's go down here. Toggle number of human players. So if number of players is 2, we want to set to player controlled. That's a boolean. Paddle 2 script dot, I think it is player controlled, equals true. And conversely, if we're setting the number of players to 1 here, we're going to want to set this to computer controlled. So we'll set as player controlled equals false. And I think that we're going to need to update the button as well. So, or update the text on the button, and players, so do we have the button? No. Public text, number of players text, and let's go and get the reference to it now before we forget. So it's players button and the text component to that, and we want to just set it now. So toggle number of human players. So anytime this method is called, which will be handled if the player number button is pressed, we want to update the text. So it is number of players text dot text equals, and it is players colon plus number of players. That may be it. We'll just check it. Do we see? once again, the on-click, we want to add an event. We go to game control object, we get game control script, and we toggle the number of human players. So let's just check the field. So number of players is being adjusted, and let's start the game now. Do we see? So yeah, each of the players is now independently controlled, and you can set the number whether to play against another human opponent or against the AI. So we'll wrap it up for this tutorial, and I'll see you in the next one.